Okay, hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Rob. We are here again. This is The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 4, Some Guy. So, full spoilers, if you haven't watched the episode, it just aired, and I am doing my little stream of consciousness reaction and review. Okay, well, the reaction is... I know some people live and die by this show, and every episode is like the best part of their week. I agree. This is one of the best parts of my week too. It is a good episode. My reaction is that it's just I coming from a comic standpoint, I kind of knew where this episode was going, so I wasn't surprised by much. I did tense up at times, and I did really enjoy it. Because the part that I enjoyed is that this is, the story of Ezekiel, and not a backstory, not a flashback, but really the story, an arc that Ezekiel needed to go through, which what we've seen so far is him being really up and positive and, getting his people revved up and ready to go and ready for action and making, taking that step further as they keep winning a little battle by little battle. But he's really naive. And, you knew that at some point they were going to take a hit. And at the end of last episode, everybody's been telling, is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? No, he's not dead. But everybody else is. Pretty much, so he's been buried under all these bodies. But anyway, before we get all into that, I mean, this is the story. It's called Some Guy. And that theme of some guy comes up a couple of times here. And, you get to at the beginning you get to see him putting on his uniform, and in a way it's kind of like his costume, his alter ego of who he has to become for these people that he's decided to protect, at the kingdom. And going out and telling everybody, with his nice speech, which it is a nice speech. He always gives nice speeches. I mean, Carrie Payton, is really good at that. And one of the main things about Carrie Payton's performance as Ezekiel is, I in the comic, I don't really care for Ezekiel. I don't know if it's how Kirkman writes him or what, but he's not one of my all-time favorite characters. People seem to really like Ezekiel on the show, and I really prefer the TV version to the comic book version. Comic book version, in my opinion, he's definitely older than this Ezekiel. And that Ezekiel, there's some, without going into comic spoilers, he's just a little, something just kind of creepy about him. Like this could be a creepy character done a different way. But the way Carrie Payton plays him, he's very charismatic. And in the comic, I think they were going for that, but I just found him kind of just like creepy. And I did not like him. I don't like Ezekiel in the comic very much. So anyway, Carrie Payton, very good. I definitely give a shit if he dies. And so, we see him, he's basically, all his people have been ripped to shreds by those big ass guns that blew through them. And him trying to just get out of there. This is not a very complex episode visually. If you think about it, it takes place in just really one location, for the most part. Not very far, not much distance is traveled for the majority, for this episode. So we get him trying to get away, all his people are turning, he's hurt, he can't walk, and, you get to this guy, another just some guy who comes up, and after one of his people turns out to be alive, he's getting him out of there, and he gets blasted by some guy who looks like Jim Carrey meets Stephen King meets the guy from Reanimator, and he uh, takes kills Ezekiel's buddy and takes him because everybody remembers there is that bounty that Negan put on everybody. That is, by everybody I mean Rick, Maggie, and the King. And so this guy plans on collecting, and I mean this guy is really like, he's like Anthony Michael Hall, or like, if you remember Stephen King's The Stand, Corin Nemec played the real douchey guy that like really liked Molly Ringwald. He seems like that type of character, the nerdy psycho, and so he's taking, Ezekiel, dragging him along, giving these kind of little, like stories about how I've heard about you and you're just some con man without the tiger, what are you, and all this, and it's kind of nailing home the kind of downfall that Ezekiel's taking in this episode, of like his confidence being shaken and seeing everybody killed, and what war really does. Confidence can only get you so far if there's some people up in a crow's nest that have, it can blow your whole teammates away because you're standing out in the goddamn open. So, while this is going on, let's cut to what I like to call the Carol Show. I always like to watch the Carol Show. It's very entertaining. Always, interesting ways that Carol does things, right? So we get right into it, where Carol, of course, what happened to Carol? Well, if you've been paying attention to this show, you know where Carol is. She's right in the thick of it. And she's found where they're getting ready to load up those guns that just mowed everybody down. And they're packing it all up, and some big guy is telling them something, and she's ready to go, and she's sitting behind some stuff and takes a deep breath, and they cut away, and you don't know what happened to her. The guys are getting their guns out, and all of a sudden those guys get mowed down like so sweetly, because Carol was crawled up into the crawl space above them and mowed them all down through the ceiling, and just ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And then comes down, blows them, makes sure they're dead, even though guys are coming right behind her, and she takes off, and they tell her to let her go because we got to get the guns out of here. So we've got those guys trying to get the guns out. Carol is in high pursuit. She gets pinned down behind a truck, but just when, instead of flanking her and just blowing her away, they just decide to keep shooting and shooting and shooting. That's really, they could have just literally, with all the guys they had, just, you go over here, you go over here, you go over here, we just wait, we pin her in, we boom, 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 boom. But then we don't get to see crazy, cool-ass Carol, tell them, trick them into thinking that she's going to tell them information, and instead gets the drop on one of the guys, but they're the saviors, so they don't care about their people that much, and they blow him away. Well, it does give her the opportunity to open up the gates that these guys are blocking, and letting walkers in that they can't hear or see because they're too busy shooting at Carol. So, at this point now, Carol is, got the drop on these guys now once those walkers come in. And now you've got Ezekiel, who's being dragged by this guy who's now pretty much gonna just, he's given up trying to get away with Ezekiel, and now he's gonna just cut his head off and put it on a pike. I really enjoyed that little bit of alliteration there. But anyway, let's not think too much about heads on pikes. Because, lo and behold, we have another character that I don't really care for that much, but everybody else really likes, and I don't dislike him. I just don't care. And that's Jerry. But he does come by in the clutch and cuts fucking Jim Carrey guy, like splits him right in half with his axe, which was freaking amazing. That was great. And like I said, sorry for all you Jerry fans. He's just to me. He's nice. He's interesting. He says "dude" a lot, and he's upbeat and chipper. And you know we need people like that in Walking Dead. They just don't tend to last very long. So maybe that's why I act like I don't like him that much, because I know that a guy like this is not going to be around for probably too much longer. Anyway, Jerry saves the day. And Carol has a choice. She sees Jerry and Ezekiel struggling by the fence. So does she save them, or does she do something about the guns? And I really thought that Carol would either figure out how to do both, or say, you know, these guys have to fend for themselves. These guns can't get out of here. But no, she does save them. They do a little flashback of, you know, Ezekiel talking about kind of the fake it till you make it type of thing, telling the story about who he was as a person and what he wanted to be, the guy in the end that leapt into the tiger cage and, you know, and helped her, you know, help Shiva. Shiva, by the way, everybody. Shiva. Everybody keeps saying Shiva. The fuck? Sorry. A little annoying. Shiva with a V. Anyway. So she goes and saves them. The guns go off. And I was like, God dang it. But, just like we had a quick cutaway to the Carol show, we'd like to pause for station identification and go to the Rick and Daryl show, being Rick and Daryl's awesome stuff going on over here, because Carol doesn't have to worry about where those guns are going, because she knows that Rick and Daryl, I guess she magically knows that those are his car engines, the motorcycle and the Jeep. Must be Rick and Daryl. I don't care how they figure it out. I don't care about the logic in this. Let's cut away to Rick and Daryl running after these guys in their cars and motorcycle and getting shit done. So yes, we get that scene from the trailer where Rick and Daryl are going after the guns, and the guy in the back seat all of a sudden pops down the trunk, you know, the back, starts firing at Daryl, who takes a header a little bit, you know, slides off, because damn, you know, this guy's like practically got a Gatling gun there. And then he shoots out Rick's engine, and at the steam coming up, what the guy doesn't realize is that behind the Jeep, as Rick turns, there's Daryl. He's gotten back up, and he blows the guy away. And then Rick does a full-on Indiana Jones moment and jumps into the Jeep, the truck, stabs dude in the guts instead of slamming his head Indiana Jones style into the windshield. And then the truck goes off the road. Rick gets out. Daryl says he looks like shit. And Rick goes, let's find out if this asshole is still alive. They do have the guns. It just kind of came out of nowhere, this little quick Rick and Daryl, you know, road chase down. You know, it was really awesome. Really, 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 really awesome. I loved it. It was so cool. Like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I think we needed that in this episode. Something, because the Ezekiel story was just kind of, not bad, just we needed a shot of adrenaline right there at that moment. So, we got the guns. Rick looks like shit. And there's some asshole they gotta take care of. So now we go back to the Ezekiel part. And, you know, this is pretty much wrapping it up. I mean, they are walking away, killing zombies as they go. Ezekiel, like, feels like he should be left behind. You know, they won't give up on him. And, they get to this part where, well, he wanted to know where all those melted-y looking walkers had come from. Well, apparently there's some toxic waste sitting in this ditch where that they find, and they're all melty and bleh. And they're crossing through this little ditch to get up, and Ezekiel decides again, you know, just leave me behind. I'm just some guy, you know, I'm not your king. You know, he's flipping out on Jerry, you know, like, I'm nobody, I'm just some guy. And that's exactly when, you know, he's stabbing zombies with his cane, and that's when Shiva shows up and does what I've been waiting for, not waiting for, like, but knowing that this was coming. And that's another reason why I wasn't, that jacked up about this episode, was that I knew eventually what was coming down, and that's the sacrifice of Shiva to save Ezekiel. And it is just as hard to watch as it was to read in the book. It's just always sad to see the animal go. I mean, a lot of times in these situations, we'd rather see the animals live than the people, So she sacrifices herself, and so that's our big loss for, besides all of Ezekiel's people, is Shiva is no longer on the show. Yeah, so, well, spill the 40 on the ground moment. So, now Ezekiel is going back to the kingdom with, he's been knocked down. And he has to face his people, and now it's time to see, if he gets knocked down, how long is it going to take for him to get back up? And that's all up to him. And, this was like a great character study. A great way of looking at who Ezekiel really is and how he's going to be going forward. So, it'll be really interesting. Next week's episode looks like we're going back to the sanctuary. We're going to find out what happened to Father Gabriel. And we're going to have a conversation, see the conversations between the lieutenants, that how did this happen and who's the rat. I don't know, maybe look like a little Reservoir Dogs situation going on, and find out who the secret undercover cop is in the situation. So anyway, this is, like I said, a really good episode. I enjoyed it quite a bit. A lot of comic book stuff in this, so again, I knew what was coming. But they did do it in a lot of the Ezekiel stuff in a way that wasn't in the books, which was nice. They fleshed it out a lot, because in the book, now I can tell you as it's done here, is that yes, Shiva was, she dies in the comic the same way, saving Ezekiel, gets, surrounded, and a tiger doesn't know the difference between a zombie and a person, so it's not on, like, why didn't it just get out of there? Well, I don't think it knew what to do. It was in fight or flight, and they just kind of, it was too late. So, anyway, I don't really have any much more to say, and, I'm really looking forward to the continuation of this season. It's doing really well. Let me know if you like this video. Please subscribe. Give me some comments. Tell me, I know the audio isn't good. I do this on a Samsung Galaxy S5. I don't have, high-tech crap. Everything I do is just finding stuff to a way to get this all up. So, anyway, so yeah, leave me comments if you like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What do you think about this season? What do you think is going to happen? Can you pronounce the word Shiva? I don't know. Share, whatever. We will see you next Sunday for the next episode. Wednesdays, we've got Mr. Robot. Punisher's coming up real soon on Friday, so I'm going to be doing that. And then we got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the beginning of December. Legion coming next year, which I'm really psyched for. So anyway, yeah, well, and again, one of these days, I keep saying it, and it keeps getting further and further away. I'm probably going to have no views by the time I get it up, but I will get my Stranger Things review finished one of these days. Anyway, this is Rob. Thanks for checking us out here at Smirking Gun, and we will see you then at the next video. Bye. Have a great night.